at any point in time, do you think, especially with the Iran conflict, do you think that we're going to see China throw it? I call it throwing it from second into third gear, where they're going to start using maybe hard power, or they may start, doing things that they really want to do because they see that, the U.S. is kind of depleting itself and putting itself on its heels, with different conflicts around the world.
So we saw a bit of that after Liberation Day, and with the escalation of tariffs into what was effectively a boycott, when the Chinese then said, "Oh yeah, well, we're going to shut down all of your critical minerals and rare earths, and we're going to stop your industries from actually running." That was going from second to third, right? Maybe from second to fourth, and it had some consequences, right? First, it got the Americans much more focused on spending money on rare earths, and working with domestic investment, reaching out to Brazil, DRC. I mean, you name it. Suddenly, there's a lot of money for the Americans to catch up with China. And even in some moments when Trump talks about, well, the American people aren't patient, but we should just take the oil. And taking the oil has been this, the context of, well, the Chinese have this ability to hit us with their global supply chain. We need to do that with oil. We've got it in the U.S. We're the largest producer now. We've got the largest reserves in Venezuela. If we control the Strait, we control Iran, then we've got that capacity. That's not the principal thing that's motivating Trump in Iran. But you can see how even if you're doing that, using that leverage, deploying that leverage publicly can cause problems for China. Now, what I've seen from the Chinese most of the time, because that was a reaction function, that was reacting to the Americans taking direct economic shots at China. But when the Americans are doing things that are just doing damage to the global economy, to global security, and doing damage to themselves, China has been doing no regret, low risk, long-term moves. And that is not just about soft power. It's about big long-term investments in post-carbon energy and semiconductors, because they don't have the production capacity the Americans do. And Taiwan is offshore and doesn't belong to a sovereign China, at least not now. And they aren't acting in a way that would be more risk acceptant. So I would say that, first of all, we should all be thankful that China doesn't have elections, because if there were midterms coming up for Xi Jinping and he was underwater with how bad the economy is going, that would be a time that he might want to act in the short-term interests of China to get a big win for Xi and boost his approval ratings and cause a lot of damage globally, which of course is exactly what's happening in the United States right now. But he's not. And so absent that, I think that they are really incrementally trying to build up such a superior position that at the point that they ever were to go to third gear, it wouldn't be a big risk. It would just be an obvious new reality. And I would say that about Taiwan. I would say that about opening up or converting the Chinese currency to try to make a play of reserve currency. I would say that in terms of a big play to kick, the Americans into second place in big international organizations like, the IMF. I mean, that kind of thing. Those things, I think, are not moves that Xi Jinping is going to make soon. So I believe that the U.S.-China relationship in the near term is actually quite stable, almost surprisingly stable. I don't believe, as Neil Ferguson does, that we're in a second Cold War, because for various reasons in the United States, because Trump respects the fact that China can hit the U.S. hard and is prepared to, and China, because they're taking a more long-term perspective, they both see the reason to forestall that kind of conflict for a significant amount of time. So I think it's a really important question that you're asking and thinking about, but that's I'm less excitable on this than I am on some issues.
That's awesome. No, thank you. I just I could learn so much from you. I could chat with you all day, but that was really awesome. And this is a really, really great medium too. of communicating. So really cool that you guys did this. Thank you for taking my question, and I better get back to my meeting.
Cool, thanks. We're going to try to make the technology more seamless, and if it works well, we'll open it up to more people going forward. Thanks. I'll take a couple more.
I wanted to ask about Cuba just because that's a situation that I feel like isn't getting enough attention. I feel like the economic course right there with U.S. pressure is probably unsustainable and might blow up, but I don't know what blow up means in this context.
Yeah. So unlike Iran, where Trump is really the decider, Cuba, Marco Rubio is acting point. He understands the environment. He knows the community. And he gets that military action is not going to happen. He also knows that Raul Castro or the Castros are the people that he needs to work with. There's no alternative to the family, even if you can shuffle the deck chairs a bit. So over the last couple months, what had been, sort of all potential outcomes being considered, they're now focusing more on carrots and sticks. The sticks you see, of course, with the economic, mostly blockade and the damage that's being done to the day-to-day economy for average Cubans. But the carrot would be allow Americans in to invest, real estate, tourism, a bunch of people that are Trump contiguous would be involved in that. And Trump wants to see this win before midterms. And Marco wants to see this for his own legacy, because if he's going to have a political future, ending a 60-year communist regime in some way, or ending the fight between the U.S. and the communist regime, I should say, and allowing an openness that Obama tried, but he was all carrot, there was no stick. The stick is very clear from the United States. And on balance, I think the Cubans are interested in cutting some kind of a deal. And so I think that this is not going to be one of the harder things they will end up doing. They are very credible on Venezuela. They are very credible in willingness to use, very serious. They don't care about the human rights implications, the humanitarian implications of, sort of having Cubans with no electricity, hospitals with no electricity. They don't care about challenges of getting goods in. The Cuban government knows that they can't last that way for years. So you're already seeing demonstrations on the street. So I think it's more a question of when they want to announce what the deal would look like, because Marco has to put real time into it, and they have to have the media space, the headline space, to be able to declare the win, which they can't do when they're declaring, sort of that they're going to wipe out the Iranian civilization at 8 p.m. So that's I think it's not in the next weeks. But I expect in the next months, this will be something that will be a win. And the sad thing for them is that if it weren't for Iran, this would honestly look like one of the bigger wins of any administration in foreign policy. I mean, I've had Obama foreign policy advisors write me saying, do you really think he can pull this off? Because they tried and they were very disappointed that, you'll remember, there was an effort. You got the baseball game going, and there was a museum that allowed in the Google to have some free internet. But the Cubans really slow rolled it because they were scared of all the American investment. They thought if they opened up, it could be the beginning of the end of their political control. And Trump is willing to say, well, fine, I'm just going to destroy your economy. And Obama never had that. He never had the stick. So in that regard, I think that they're set up to be more successful on this, but I don't think it's going to matter very much in the context of the enormous damage they're doing to the American economy. There are a lot of Cubans in the United States, especially in Florida, that really care about this issue. They would vote on this issue. But most Americans care a lot more about $4 gas and $5 diesel, and only going up from here. So ultimately, this is going to be the Iran story is going to be the bigger story that Trump has to deal with, and it's going to get him crushed in the midterm election. So
Thank you.
that's where we are. Thanks for calling in, man. Okay, let's do one more before I head out of here. It's top of the hour. I got to go. Thank you, everybody. I hope people enjoyed this. Again, we'll keep working on the process and try to improve the tech, and then we'll open it up to get more folks. But appreciate you being a part of this. And I'll see you all real soon.